Testing 1, 2.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Who's saying hi?
Amanda.
Hi, Amanda. Nice to meet you. Indirectly.
I agree.
So I'm going to try to get this screen up here where we can see things this time. Let's see how many other people are here. All right. So we have, let's see, I'm going to undo some microphones here. Self-muted. Okay, so we have Arvis is here, Kathy's here, Melanie's here. And I'm going to give everyone the opportunity to say something if they want. Looks like some people are still muted down. All right, well, let me get some things up on the screen here. Vicky just joined. Welcome, Vicky. So we have 10 people in the class, which should make for a lot of fun. And I really appreciated everybody sending me their email and their chart information. And if you haven't yet, feel free to email it to Jeff V as in Victor Poole, Poole @gmail.com. And I'll have your chart information here. And as we go through, we'll be looking at all of our charts, getting a chance to be able to see how this fits in your chart. How do you apply it to your own chart? Let's see here. I'm usually a Zoom user, not a GoToWebinar user, and sometimes I find that it takes up so much real estate on the screen that it's hard to see anything. And can people see what's on the screen right now?
I can see it.
You can see the slide. It says starting on time.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. And if you don't know how to unmute your mic, you essentially look on the bar there and there will be a microphone. It's in red and it's up near the top area. And what you do is you just click on that red mic and it'll turn green. You don't need to have your cameras on or anything like that unless you want to do it later. What I'd like to do is proceed through the presentation and the class and hold your questions, because we can spend all of our time answering questions and never get into the material. And so make note of things that you want to ask questions about later, and we'll have plenty of time to be able to do that. And if some kind of emergency or anything like that happens and you need to talk, then just unmute your mic, and we can definitely sit here and talk on that. You don't have to put anything in the question or chat boxes. I'm not going to have time to look at them anyway. So as we're going through, it's probably just best that we stop every once in a while and we can have a Q&A session if there's an interest in doing that. And it's completely up to you. and I'll definitely work with whatever it is that you want to do there. All right. All right, so let's get started. Let me get my... I have to set on screen sharing. All right, so because it's Saturday and Saturn is the ruler of this day, Barry always reminds me that we have to follow the energies of Saturn, and one of the boons you get from Saturn is you start on time. We did, and chanting is a key part of it. You'll have time going forward to be able to review all the notes, and if you want to watch the last class, for example, you'll have access to that. And the other stuff is related more to Barry's teaching on it, but I sent you materials through Dropbox. When you use my Dropbox, it's just a straight transfer, and I use it all the time for chart readings and things. So you don't have to own Dropbox in order to be able to access the files I'll send you. And all of you should have access to that. That should work fine. So that's the first thing we'll cover here. I have a set of chants that I do. Most of them are exactly the same as what Barry does, but so what we'll do is we'll start with our eyes closed, and we'll just take a deep cleansing breath in and let go. And just bring your awareness through your body. And if you need to take another breath, take another deep breath in, hold it for a few counts, 3, 4 counts, and then let it back out. Bring your awareness into the present moment. And we'll start with the chants. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Avamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatiyana Shrinvanutipi Siddhasadanam. Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. Hari Om. Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Now we do the invocation to the Guru. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And then we do the unity chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Punaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let your awareness observe the sensations in the body. And very slowly, at your own pace, you can open up your eyes. All right. So let's begin today's class. Now, hang on a second there. There we go. Get all these things out of the way. All right. So today we're going to be doing a short recap of last week for some of you who weren't there. So we'll be looking at Ashwini and Bharani. We didn't get to Kritika last week because we only did 2 Nakshatras. And then we will move on to the next 3 Nakshatras. So we'll be right in line with the classes. And each week we'll do 3 Nakshatras. And I've also provided a supplement that all of you can get, and it's part of the link I sent you. It's a Word file that uses, I've been doing specific nakshatra forecast on a daily basis for over 5 years with my teacher, who is Sam Jeppy. And I went through 2 years of certification with him. And I started writing the nakshatras because they really spoke to me. And so what I've done is I've provided all the way up to Ardra. You'll have notes on a way to sort of look at a forecast with it. So that'll give you additional ways of understanding and seeing how you can apply it in your own way. And there's always a bit of creativity that we use with it, but there'll be some guidelines. And so what I'm going to do is provide you with the understanding behind those so that you can go deeper into it in your own awareness. Now, 1 or 2 of you said that you didn't have a lot of Vedic astrology training beforehand. So I want to put all this in a point of reference. This is just a repeat of what I said. So one of the things that's really important is if you haven't had a lot of Vedic astrology understanding, this can kind of blow everything into the true proportion of what it is, because Parashara says that Vedic astrology is all about how spirit takes form, and that in Vedic astrology, everything's an illusion, and you're just the sakshat, you're just the witness to what's going on. A lot of times people will think it's fortune telling and things like that, and it has nothing to do with that. It basically shows you the karmas which were present at the time you were last alive, and at the time that you were born, you had to wait that exact amount of time in order for those karmas to be again present so that you could continue the next lesson of learning about those. Now, the nakshatra is the cosmic level that sits behind all of the signs, and it sits behind all of the houses. It sits behind all the planets and everything. And it is that sort of Shakti element of prana that moves things through life. So it's very unique to Vedic astrology. These deal with what are called the nakshatras, or the lunar constellations. And when you break down the Sanskrit word nakshatra, it's broken up in many different ways, but it essentially means like a sky map or a map of the stars. There's 2 different ways of looking at it. And it's referred to as the lunar mansions. And this was really before there were signs, before there were houses and all of that. The moon was the thing that everybody looked at. And so the nakshatras are directly connected to the moon and all of the expressions. And it shows the moon is our consciousness. It's how we feel alive in the world. And so this is very powerful, transcendent backdrop to all of the planet signs and the houses. And because every one of them is connected to the moon. So the moon brings out the intuition, the intelligence. It is your consciousness. It is the thing that comes with you lifetime after lifetime, that brings your karmas, and we deal with them through the mind. So the moon connects you to your nature of how you nurture others through selfless love, and it's also that deep intuition that you have. And it's connected to the feelings and emotions, and those are mostly on the surface level as disturbances. So when you know that you get really emotional, like if you're a Cancer, you're all about the moon. And so you will move through life in a very subjective way because of that. And you will experience things in a much more unique way than all the other signs, which are ruled by, planets and also like the sun. And the sun is that life force of the soul that never goes away. So even when we drop this coat that we're wearing, we become the self, which is the sun. That is the one without a second. That is the true power, and that never goes out. Just like when we look in the sky, God forbid that sun should ever go out, because none of us would be here if it wasn't for that. So when we feel all emotional and feeling level, we haven't gone to the depths of, we go below the surface level when we're dealing with our feelings and emotions. And that's sort of the magic cure, because that connects you deep to the heart. The moon is that element that relates to that life force from the heart. And in many of the signs, you'll see when the moon goes through there, especially if it's a moon-ruled nakshatra, you'll definitely feel those things. You'll feel the surface level disturbances. And rather than bouncing around on the waves, you always just go deeper. You go deeper. And this is specifically related to anyone who has a water sign, because these water signs are related to Pisces, they're related to Cancer, and they're related to Scorpio. Those are the three. And each of them have a different sort of unique expression of that, but they're all of water. And water is that element that just wants to merge with everything. Notice how it sweeps everything out of the way. So whereas the movement of the sun is linked to the signs in the zodiac, the movement of the moon connects to the 27 nakshatras. And if you want to get more detail on that, make sure you watch the first session that was put out. You can get it on Barry Rosen's YouTube page. There's also a download for it as well. So all the planets are the foundations and the rulers of the zodiac signs, and the nakshatras within that sign. So the planets, the signs, the nakshatras, there isn't any rank of importance. They're all important. Everything in Vedic astrology is important, depending on how you stack it up, how you build the story based on the signs, based on the planets that rule the signs, based on the houses that they refer to. Everything's important. We don't take anything away. Everything counts. And there's no good or bad. It's all just a level of intelligence expressing itself, which expresses itself through the dignities. But the nakshatras are totally different than that. Those are the godly forces that sit behind everything. And if you read the 7 States of Consciousness article that I sent to Barry when he sent this course out, it tells you all about the details of how that consciousness grows to express itself in 7 different ways. And I won't go into it here, but the main thing about the nakshatras, if you want to tune in with them, you really have to be in the present moment. So anyone who's a Vedic astrologer or who's studying Jyotisha should have a very deep, committed practice of yoga pranayama, and meditation, because the nakshatras are linked to every one of those things. And when you have a strong practice that even when you feel like you don't want to do it, you do it, you'll start to notice your connection to those godly forces, to those cosmic energies. And they will eventually begin to reveal their own stories to you. And that was what happened with me. So what's important about them is each of the deities, there's a myth to them, but the deities are the way that the human mind connects to those forces all through the universe. And, the ancient rishis, they knew it was easier for us to be able to understand those forces if they made them that's a big word, anthropomorphized. So if they make it more human or superhuman, we can relate to it more. Now, there's 3 sections of the sky, and there's all kinds of different types of deities that hang out in these different 3 areas. So starting with Aries to Cancer, everything is Rajasic. The underlying energies are Rajasic in there because we're initiating creation, we're birthing things. And then when we hit the Gandanta point, which is where we get water, Gandanta means the knot. It also is related to drowning because you can literally drown in it, or you can drown in like the information that's flowing from the sign before. But there's a point, 3 different points that line up with Cancer and Leo, which is water to fire, where there's a Gandanta. So there's no nakshatra that bridges that gap. So that whole first section, all of those, it's called the Purushartha. So Purusha, the self, and Artha are the way we act and resource the self. And we have 4 goals. We got to know our Dharma, which is the first. We need to know what resources we need in order to take care of that identity that we are. So that's called the Artha, the resources and how we act. Then there's our desires, which is the Kama aspect. We have to have the right desires. We have to have the ones that bring, they're not just selfish, but they're a desire that's more holistic. And then the last thing is we have to sort of take all those 3 and figure out how do we get peace in our heart, which is the final goal of each of these Purusharthas. Like the 4th house, for example, is the end of the first one. It's about moksha. It's finding peace, release, and finding that within your heart. And so everyone, based on the planets in those particular sections of the Purushartha, we're going to feel them in different ways. And we're going to be scrambling some of those things. So when we go Leo to Scorpio, we've got all these things that we birthed, and now we're in the area of big structures. It starts with Leo, which is the kingdom of the whole world, where you're the king. And Leo to Scorpio is all about the tamasic nature of how do you maintain the creation. All the structures of creation are in the tamasic section of that. And then you get to the water and the fire again, and which goes from Scorpio, the deep water, into Sagittarius, the dual fire. And that last section, that last Purushartha, they all have the same 4 goals, but they're related to different things. The second one of the structures really, it deals with everything from, what's the size of it, to all of the people in it, to what those people are supposed to do. Because when you put Leo in reference, it's the sign of the king. In the ancient times, the only people that got this knowledge were the kings. And so you'll read through the scriptures, like there's one beautiful book, Ashtavakra Gita, which is all about King Janaka. He's not enlightened. He's been meditating and doing all these practices, and there's a beautiful story that unfolds on that. So it's important, first of all, to establish who's going to be in charge and what that's going to involve. And then who are the people that are going to be in the kingdom that you're going to be serving? And that's the Tamasic nature, which is very self-referential, but it has to do with maintaining all these things. There's a lot in a kingdom to maintain. So when you get to the water sign of Scorpio, and you move between Scorpio and Sagittarius, you're entering the Sattvic Purushartha. This is where you're dealing with transformation. This is really one of my favorite areas of the zodiac. And right now, all the planets are there. Every single planet except Mars. So there's a big concentration on this area of transformation going on. And we're all feeling it depending on where the sign of Capricorn sits in your chart. If you are a Capricorn, you're really feeling it. I am a Capricorn. So it's a lot of concentration, a lot of things to take care of. And there's some unusual supernatural deities there to make sure those things happen. All those elements and energies, and that it's the Sattvic area, which is really dealing with those things that compel us to act because it could bring goodness, peace, love, and happiness into the world. And that's a big mission for us right now. So just to give you an identity or a feeling for how this works, I want to take your mind back to 2019 in May and June timeframe. And for those of you, it doesn't matter where you were in the world, you will see this, but I'm going to do it from the United States standpoint. Remember in the summertime, how much rain fell. So at that time, Jupiter was sitting retrograde in Scorpio, deep water. And through the United States, the whole Midwest, where a lot of our farms are, were all underwater. They couldn't plant the crops. And we had huge storms slamming in on our East Coast. They were hurricane force winds and heavy rain that happened, Scorpio. And people were drowning in the mountains because all the trees were falling down. And they were blocking the paths, and people couldn't get out. So that's all Scorpio stuff, that vulnerability, deep, deep water, and everyone's fear that they might lose their life, as an example. And so fear plays big there, so does paranoia. Now, at the exact time that Jupiter went over the Gandanta point into Sagittarius, within the very hour that it happened, the rains ceased and the Cathedral of Notre Dame caught fire. You may have remembered this. That's an example of how crossing a Gandanta point where there's no nakshatra, anything can happen. And something as explosive as that. But look at the effect. Look at the effect of the moon crossing that point. It unties the knot. The way to think about it is you've got a boat tied up at the water's edge, and you untie that knot and set it free, and then go across that Gandanta point. Some of that water will follow you. And some other things that can follow is the whole feeling nature of it because of the moon. So fear can just flood into that. And a lot of people were shaken by the fact that that very ancient cathedral had caught fire like that. There's a dynamic example of that happening on Earth, even though it's coming from these higher forces, which is really sort of bringing a cosmic purge, if you will, and it just sort of takes over control. We can't predict what it will be. So that's a very important thing to understand about the nakshatras. They're grouped in these sections. And the energies that move from section 1 to 2 to 3, there's no nakshatra. So you can expect the unexpected to come. The other thing I talked about really briefly, and we can do this as we get deeper into the nakshatras, is I use this thing called the hero's journey, which looks at your life from rebirth to letting go. And it's based on the moon nakshatra, which looks at the emotional mind, your psychological temperament, and what you seek in order to feel peace. Then you look at the nakshatra of the sun, which is the deep drive in you for spiritual liberation. That's what illuminates and activates your soul. And then, of course, our superpowers have to do with our ascendant nakshatra, which shows your individual path in this life and the actions that feel the most natural, efficient, and powerful for you. It deals with your core identity in this lifetime, and the nakshatra of it really, it'll amaze you when you read it and understand what that means to your identity. And if it's just your ascendant, a lot of times people don't have a planet there. It's a deeper underlying spiritual nature that you will have felt since the time you were a young child, and you might feel it more powerfully now in your life. So the last thing is what I call the special ace in the hole of your skills, which deals with that your natural ninja tool set that you possess and you're never without, and that's your ruling planet. Whatever rules your ascendant is a very powerful tool that you have in your life. And so I gave a simple example here, but we'll have plenty of time to do these for each of you. That'll be a real fun session. We'll probably do it near the end of the class when we've seen all of the nakshatras. So the whole thing about this is the flow of the spirit going through your mind. And so it's important in a couple of ways, the way I break it down. Some people just look at the nakshatra and they'll talk about what sign it's in and all of that and what the ruling planet is and everything. But it's also important to understand that Ashwini only happens in Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the Vedic zodiac. So it's important that it's the first in the first, a lot of firsts with Ashwini. And so that is the place where I like to use the analogy of when you take your first breath in, because imagine you're born, you come out of that sort of Piscean water, and you hopefully are born and not stillborn. In Pisces, you go into the dream state, and then you're born again in Aries. And where you're born is in Ashwini, the first nakshatra. And so think of yourself as a child. You come out of the womb, you can't see, you haven't taken your first breath, you're still connected to the umbilical cord. Doctor holds you upside down, gives you a swat on the rear end, and you take your first breath in. And then there's this scream that comes out. So Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars does a lot of screaming. And if you watch little kids, that innocence, Ashwini is that first nakshatra right there. And it's bridging into that sign. So it starts with Ashwini, and Ashwini is really it's called the horseman, the power of the horses. So just imagine you get this first breath in and all of a sudden the whole body becomes animated, and you can't see, you're completely in this like cocoon situation. You take that first breath in, and the reason for the cry is it hurt, that slap on the rear, but the other thing might be, oh my God, I'm back. And so both of those can bring a cry. It's depending on what was going on in the last lifetime when you come in. So everything we do at that point, we take our first breath in, everybody laughs and we cry. And at the end of our life, we take our last breath out, everybody cries and we laugh. But in between that first breath and that last breath, we completely take our breath for granted. So Ashwini is like, let's move on down the road. This is these two horses The whole story of is that the son had a romantic engagement with his wife's sister, it was Chaya, and that produced an offspring, which included Saturn. So as soon as his wife found out, she said, okay, I'm out of here. So she flees into the celestial realm and she turns into a mare. And the son's like, oh, what did I do? He becomes a stallion and chases her to Earth. And so they eventually reconcile and they make love. And that union produces these twin horse offspring, which are called the Ashwins. And you'll see that the deity is the Ashwins. So these are these twins, and they were left behind on Earth to be the first healers because they represented hidden metaphysical energy. And this is the point in the zodiac where the sun gets exalted. It gets exalted in Ashwini. And so this is the first nakshatra. And so you'll see Ashwini has a lot to do with speed, initiation, and moving fast, if not impulsive in their movements. And so just think about these children that you see around you. Sometimes, we find a place and we're relaxing late in the afternoon. The kids come home from school, and all of a sudden, what are you hearing? All this screaming. They're outside playing. They're feeling that prana racing through them. And so this is all about taking the first breath in, which is prana. Prana enlivens the whole body. It sends life force racing through the body, like a horse chomping at the bit. And so what happens is you need a way to be able to channel that. Otherwise, it starts running all over the place. And so they use the analogy of how you take these two little horses, and if you don't yoke them together so that they move in the same direction, one will run one way and the other one will run off the other way. And that's analogous to everybody. When they get up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Many people, it's like shove something in my mouth, drink my coffee, throw my clothes on, race out the door when we weren't quarantined, and get in the traffic. And so there you are in your car, and your mind's like not clear, it hasn't been focused at all, and your mind's just all over the place. I had an experience like this when I wrote my book in 2018. The last night, it was all I could do to finish it, and I almost gave up. It was like, and I walked around and started doing pranayama, started doing bhastrika, real powerful, forceful bellows breath. And within about 1.5 minutes, my mind was like sharp as a tack, and it was 12:30 at night. And I had to get it in to the editor by 1 p.m., 1 a.m. rather, I should say. So I learned that example. It's like, man, it focused the awareness like that. So this is the way to look at, and it also has this, this deep healing kind of thing to it, because that's what it did to me. I mean, I couldn't focus my mind. I was at the point of ready to give up, and it all of a sudden brought that focus. That is healing. So that's the first thing that happens. So notice, because it's the first sign, it's all about you. It's all about your awareness, your identity, and how you deal with these things. So Ashwini is ruled by the Ashwins, which are the twin horsemen. And they're known as the first Ayurvedic physicians of the gods. And this is because Ayurveda is a sister science to Jyotisha, and Jyotisha is where we are that intelligent energy that's alive, but it has to be focused. It has to be channeled so that our awareness is in the present moment so that we can witness what's happening. And so it has a power to quickly reach things through focusing the breath, because that's everything. I mean, how long can you hold your breath? It is the most intimate connection between spirit and form. It's more essential than anything else. If you don't do the pranayama, there's no asanas, there's no meditation, there's just brain power flying all over the place, energy flying all over in the body, unfocused. So when you look at the basis of Ashwini, above is the creatures that need that healing. And its basis below is actually all the therapy. So pranayama has been understood by, it's all contained within Ayurveda. It's a branch of yoga. You know, you look at in yoga, they may teach you pranayama, but not always. I remember early days in yoga, you know, they might teach you how to use your breath while you're doing a posture. But I'm talking about something more than that, something which becomes a discipline. And this is the sign of discipline. This is the sign of being totally alert, being instinctive, because that's what Aries is, very sharp-minded ability, clear mind, prana. That's the key to it. So from these three, the entire world becomes free of disease. So if you do all these practices, so for example, in this COVID thing, people kept asking me if I wanted a shot or I wanted a vaccine, and well, viruses can't live in an oxygenated environment. So one of the things you can do, whether you wear a mask or not, for over 35 years, I've been doing this every day. So I haven't been sick in all that time. And you start to wonder why. Well, because you're infusing the prana, the life force, you're attending to the life force. So that's really what Ashwini is all about. So what are the strengths and the shadows of that? So one of the strengths of it is that you might be real interested in medicine and healing therapy. So when you see Ashwini, that's certainly one thing. I've surprised many clients by telling them, oh, your ascendant is Ashwini Nakshatra, and this is related to Ayurveda. And they go, oh my God, I've been studying Ayurveda. I love it. As an example, you'll get those kind of responses from people, especially ones that are related to unorthodox and mystical teachings, you know, such as yoga, all these alternative therapies, and astrology. So you may also have a special fondness or affinity for animals, especially horses. Now, I don't have Ashwini in my chart, but it doesn't mean that you don't experience Ashwini, because when the moon goes through there every month, you do. And I've noticed on special occasions when the moon is in Ashwini that if I'm around horses, they will come running towards me. And you'll see people that have structures that are somewhat like a horse. The way they hold their head, the proud position, the strength of their legs, you know, so you may have a fondness for the animals, but especially horses, but those are related to vitality. They have this incredible grace and strength and power. And so you'll see if when Ashwini is active by the moon, or if it's in your natal chart, that you embody many of those qualities. And it makes you very good at initiating activities. And you'll also possess a regal and a prominent gait like a horse. So the shadow issues are that you may be moving too fast and you may overpower others. And this is a sign of impatience because it's a movable sign. It's flickering flame, basically. It's fire. And you know, there's a lot of impatience that can hinder your progress there. Also, opinions. Mars is all about opinions. And if you're impatient and frustrated because things aren't moving the way you want, you're not moving fast enough, you'll feel all of that going on. And a lot of opinions will come out of your mouth. Also, it's you're naturally a mystical mindset, but it may be more advanced than other people. See, each of the signs has a deep intuition, as I mentioned before, associated with the sign in the nakshatra. So in this particular case, lining them up, absolutely, you can have some I know some people who are Aries people, man, they're very incredible, and they like to keep gurus in mind. as an example of it. So also having patience and teaching, less criticism and directing will take you a lot farther. You'll notice if you have Ashwini active, or you know people who have it in their charts, they're going to want to take control of everything. So they'll criticize what you say. They won't have any patience. They're always like, well, what's next? What are we going to do next? So all that impulsiveness, then the flow of the spirit through the mind goes into bharani. So bharani means bearing. It means being able to put up with whatever's there, to bear the weight of it and to be the bearer. So it shows that quality of the discipline, but control. And it may also be punishment, restraint. And the reason is it's Yama. The god deity is Yama, and he's the Grim Reaper. He's, the guy that comes to take you back when you leave this world. But the kinder way of looking at it, the more evolved way, is that he's the god responsible for the soul's course. Now, the ruler of it is Venus, and the symbol is associated with the feminine reproductive system. And this is a fierce and severe nakshatra. The race or the gun, it says, is Manusha, which means very attractive human beings. And the animal is an elephant. What does the elephant do? A lot of times it stands in your way. It restrains you. It's a big obstacle that you have to overcome. So bharani is the star of restraint. So the way to put this in mind is you have all this prana, okay? Next thing you need to do, bharani sits right in the middle of Aries. So you transition in from Ashwini to bharani, and bharani is like, okay, whatever those impulses were that you couldn't control in Ashwini, now you need to control them. Prana, yama. Prana, yama. And those two horses are the right and left nostrils. You have to yoke them together with nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, or other pranayama techniques using both of the nostrils. And yama is the restraint, the star of restraint. And this is where you need to bear the fruits of your actions. So this has to do with the consequences of what you didn't control in Ashwini. There's always consequences to everything you do. And if you're not careful in planning how you use those impulses and you have sex with somebody, a child could be born and there's a consequence. You'll always be their parent, whether you want them or not. And that's exactly what bharani relates to. That's why it's the feminine reproductive system, because when you're chomping at the bit, wild as a horse, and you're incredibly vital, what happens? So this is showing we need to restrain ourselves. And so being that star of restraint, what you begin to see with that connection to Ashwini is that, Yama was the offspring of the sun. He was said to be the first man who died. And this was due to the results of his actions, his karmas. So the term Yama is about controlling yourself. Like if the horses are skittish and wanting to run off, you tighten the reins and you tie it back on the whatever it is they're pulling, the cart, and then they stand still. They're restrained. They're pulled back. The yoke that they're wearing restrains them as well. Otherwise, they're going to be taken off down the road. So this is the in this nakshatra. It's not by happenstance that it follows Ashwini. It's the asterism of impulse and the need to focus your energy. So bharani is all about the consequences of all sorts of how you do that. So in a real neutral way, your energetics will, they penetrate reality and they create a result. So if you have prominent planets in bharani, you're often very aware of your mistakes and the mistakes of others. More times it's the other because you're in Aries, which is about it. I didn't do that. You did it. So it also makes you feel the need, to either be punished for your mistakes or that you need to punish others. And you'll see this in relationships. If a partner has Ashwini in it and they're not real, or I'm sorry, Bharani in it, they can be pretty, difficult. This is what accounts for that fierce and severe nature. They're not going to be like that all the time, but certainly when the moon goes through there, you're going to see it every single month. And the beauty of it is that everything evolves in the zodiac. So when you're born in the beginning, it's all about your identity, yourself, tamasic energies, and even though it's in the section of the sky that's rajasic, you're still, at the beginning you haven't, as a child, you haven't evolved to understanding that there's anybody other than you. And rajasic means you've got to connect. So you notice children, when they'll take their toys away from everybody else. No, you can't have that toy. But when they get like 4 or 5 years old, oh, they want to start sharing the toys. So you begin to see that evolution of the rajasic nature, because everything evolves tamasic to rajasic to sattvic, regardless of where it is. So over time, you evolve out of these challenges. Most people they'll recount their worst Mars energies happening when they were a child. And as it gets older, it gets tamed because these rules start to happen naturally in people. So it's very important that when you see those kinds of things, and you'll see that fierce, severe nature of that. So a higher, more creative choice is being learned. That has to do with honoring time and movement. Don't be so quick to blow everything up, settle down. And this last year, we got that lesson. We're all running through life. Saturn comes into Capricorn and says, shut up, sit down, close your eyes, and meditate. You're not going anywhere. And in this case, Mars would be about, how you rein that in. How do you rein that in? And so Bharani, being ruled by Yama, the god of death, it has the power to take things away from you. And it's based above is the removal of life from the body. That's the ultimate thing. It takes you out of the body when life is done. And its basis below is the carrying of the soul to the realm of the ancestors. It's making sure you make that long journey around the zodiac. So by the combination of these three things, this is how the creatures move on to the next world. Otherwise, they're all piling up in Ashwini and waiting for Bharani to take the next thing going on. So we talked about the strengths and weaknesses of Ashwini here. The strength is that you have a very serious nature, and that may lead to others. It may be able to lead others to face painful realities in life. So you may feel yourself as carrying heavy burdens, and you have an innate awareness of life's transformations, including death. You know at any moment that you're going to have to face that. There's no escaping it. So you'll be able to use power wisely. And Venus, as the ruling planet, compels you to seek a humane and a practical use of that power. So you'll possess certain feminine magnetism, even if you're a man. So this refers to the capacity to gather and hold your energy. And as you'll see, as we move into the Venus-ruled sign of Taurus, it's about gathering the herd around you. And so we'll see that in a few minutes. So one of the consequences is that you need to sort of pull all your resources together. Yama, constrain your resources, focus them. So the shadow issues are that you may be overly serious. People may say, man, you're way too serious. Even kind of down in the dumps or real sullen at times, because your awareness of life's transformations can really weigh you down. It's like it's holding you back. And uplifting spiritual messages and philosophies are very important for people in Bharani, but also irritability and impatience from pushing your own agenda too strongly must be watched. So now we're sitting in the center, in Bharani, in the center of Aries, and now we're going to the bridge that flows the spirit of the mind into what's called Kritika. Kritika means the razor, the cutter. So let me set the stage, is that if you don't focus your energy and channel it so that it's not all over the place, and you don't use restraint in the pranayama, you can't see behind the veils of the illusion. So you need, when you do those things, you cut through the veils of illusion. You see what's happening. And this is the thing I was saying before, you race out to go out into the world and you don't know what you're doing. You're just doing it because you're compelled to do that. And that's Rajasic. Run, 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 run until it gets really volatile, full of passion and all those things. So Kritika shows that transition from Aries into Taurus. So it moves from this, what I call the movable sign, you can call it the cardinal sign, the cardinal fire, into fixed earth, in the spirit of purification, ritual, and sacrifices. This is like a fire pit where the flame is contained in the earth. So think about that. Another way to look at it is you get these actors, you act in Aries. And as you're leaving Aries and you're moving to a stable area, if you get these bad actors moving through there, they're racing through, they don't really see the reality of things. And it's where we have to sort of continue that fire that we have and move it over into the stable earth. So you're a flickering flame, like a campfire. And so that flame then moves into the solid earth, and that's related to the Vedic fire pits. So the deity is Agni, the god of fire. Sacrifice and ritual. Think about what Agni does. It runs the Jatara Agni, which is the digestive system in our body, which is in the solar plexus area. And we have that Jatara Agni, that fire energy digests the food. This is why fire always has to do with digesting the elements. Signs of fire, they digest everything through the body, but mostly it comes through the eyes. So you'll see sight, vision, clarity all associated with the fire. And the ruler is the sun, because when you can't cover the light of the sun. If you have some kind of veil there, it's going to burn it away sooner or later. And it's that powerful resource. So you need a razor or a dagger or something, scissors, to cut through that. And so the symbols are about that. Soft and dreadful. So, for example, that soft nature is moving into that loving state of heaven on earth, which is Taurus. But there's this dreadful nature of it, because you have this fire and something's going to get ceremoniously sacrificed. So there's a feeling of dread that can come to that if we don't know what it is. And the race is a rakshasa, which means somebody stirring up all kinds of issues in their life. And the animal is a goat. I have no idea what the goat means there, but a goat is a practical kind of thing. It also lives in herds and things like that. And goats, they got goat yoga. They love to climb on things. And this is part of that bridge coming from the fire into the earth. So the story in the mythology says that the stars of the Big Dipper were the 7 sages, known as the Saptarishis. They were all happily married to the 7 sisters, which were called the Kritikas. And these wives then became, they ended up getting divorced. They were divorced from their husband due to some really weird a mysterious romance that happened between Agni and Svaha. What do you do when you throw something into the Vedic fire pit? Swaha at the end. Just letting, let it be, let go of it. So according to the Mahabharata, Svaha impersonated 6 of the 7 wives of the Saptarishis, and she made love to Agni. So the 7 rishis, when they heard about that, they started doubting the chastity of their own wives, and so they divorced them. So this is where the moon gets exalted in the sign. Kritika is right on the edge where you go into Rohini. And as the moon gets its light from the sun. So the nakshatra is also where our sun was first born and nurtured in the Orion Nebula. So it was very nearby. So this nakshatra is related to the fire and that purification and yet that illumination that it gives. So the appearance of light itself is enough to remove darkness, and it allows you to cut through the veils of illusion in the mind. And so it's those illusions that lead to our greatest attachments in life, and those become our greatest suffering. So this nakshatra bridges Aries and Taurus, and it's related to that fire pit I talked about where you make the sacrifices. And these are the ones that are constructed in the Vedic ceremonies. They're done in a specific way, a certain structure, because Taurus, where it bridges into, is all about stable structures, the beautiful structures in life, because it's ruled by Venus. So we have to feed the flame of light and wisdom with good food of love and pure intention. And we've just come out of this period where everything's been about our immune systems. And what did we eat while we were doing that? How much weight did we put on when we were there? So what we do in this energy is we feed the fire in the Vedic ceremony. You feed that with sweet foods such as ghee and sweet pudding and other delicacies. And this mixture of fire and food can be seen in the mixture of that soft and dreadful nature of the nakshatra. So Kritika ruled by Agni, the god of fire, and that has the power to burn and to purify. But its basis above is heat and below is light. So these are the results of these 3, is burning or purification. That's Kritika. So what are the strengths? So you have this innate awareness of hidden light, and that motivates you to seek out truth and to take care and nurture other people. You have a love of spiritual ceremonies, especially related to fire. And many of you, if you've had the honor of being able to be at homas and pujas and yagyas, you know what this means. So you have this powerful desire that you want to fulfill, and you may pursue those with gusto. And you have the ability to cut your losses when necessary. The sign of Taurus that it moves into later on, one of the biggest problems is they don't want to let go of anything. And so we'll get to that in a minute. So this shows you still have that ability to cut through and go, you know what, this isn't going to work for me. And you'll move on because you're still in the middle, moving from that movable energy of Aries, which changes dramatically, sudden and often, into stable Taurus, where you can't change your mind. That's why this, in that central area, you can cut your losses. Shadow issue, you may exhibit a passive aggressive nature or try to be excessively dominant. Directing personality at all, to you're just that kind of person. You're always directing everything. And anger issues and your stubbornness may plague you, especially with lovers or those who expect to satisfy your desires. If they don't do it, then you'll be a little bit upset about that, maybe even very upset about it. So, and hopefully you won't use that dagger for some other purpose than to see behind the veils. But there again, that's all related to that, soft and difficult energies that you can experience there, where you can get burned, basically. So one of the other things is religious orthodoxy. Atheism or hypocrisy may also be present if the religion or the religious figures from your childhood disappointed you or were corrupted, because you see behind the veil, you see the light behind there, and they may not have been showing you who they are. So we've just gone through, we're moving into the into the second sign, but we've moved through a number of nakshatras. So Rohini is called the ruddy cow, red and growing. And the red has to do with Aldebaran, which is, the bright red star. It's considered the favorite wife of the moon and the most pleasant. And the thing about ruddy cow, if you see a baby cow when they're born, a lot of times they have that sort of those red splotches on the body, as an example, and then they grow, they begin to grow. So Rohini shows the earthly creative nature of Taurus, and there's a lot of beauty, but there's also a lot of attachment to the form if you're not careful here. And the deity is Prajapati. Prajapati is known as the creator, and he was the earlier form of Brahma. Later, he became Brahma. And his job was to populate the cosmos, with a whole bunch of people, so that God could experience himself in all of the senses in the dense form. But when he looked around, all that was there were gods and stars. I mean, that was his biggest problem, is how do you create mortals and enjoy the creation as the creator? That was his job, was to get it all together, create them. And he realized that the mortal beings of flesh, those need to be created from somewhere. They need to come from flesh, and so sex is going to be involved. And since he was the creator and everything was his own creation, he started looking around, what do I do? And then the only people of flesh were his daughters. And so he just saw there was no way he couldn't not fornicate with one of his daughters in order to make mortal beings. And his most beautiful daughter was Rohini. And he wanted to make the most beautiful things from the most beautiful of his daughters. So, Prajapati is the lord of Rohini. He's her master. He's the father. So in this nakshatra, there's a lot of high degrees of sensual pleasure and attractiveness, wealth, and growth of all kinds. Now, there's something that's not really mentioned here, but as soon as, it's going to be in the next nakshatra, but as soon as he cast his eye on his daughter, that created a lot of commotion in the heavens. And the gods were not too happy with what he was about to do. So Rohini, the word means growth, and it really coincides, as I said, with the red star, the bright one, Aldebaran, and it's considered, that most favorite wife of the moon, the most pleasant. So there's a lot of connection here, a lot of peace, stability in that nakshatra. And when you see people who are like Taurus people, or maybe it's in one of their houses and they have Rohini, you'll see that they don't want to budge. They can be pretty stubborn about that area of their life. And because they get really attached to it and they cling on to all kinds of objects. And so you'll see this materiality that comes out. Also, can be a lot of enormous beauty indicated, so a lot of vanity and a lot of jealousness. So I used to get dinged by what I'll say about Rohini, but you'll see it in a few minutes. But when you see a Taurus energy in someone and you got some significant planets there and it's in Rohini, you're not going to be able to tell them anything, because they're going to believe that they already know the answer to everything. I have a sister with Rohini moon. I have a brother with Rohini moon. They're both that way. One's a Scorpio, the other one's a Taurus. And they actually do grow, especially the Taurus people, because they start to become likable. they love food, they love everything. They buy some of the finest level things. So, the deeper promise here has to do with value and what is truly the most valuable. And this is the part of Taurus. It wants to have it all. It wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants that to be beautiful, to last forever. So that's the nature of this. But the most beautiful things that we create are eternal and they're internal. They're not material or temporary. So Rohini ruled by Prajapati, the creator, the lord of creatures. Its power is growth. Its basis above is all the plants and below is all the waters that supports it. And very interesting because when you look at the signs that are opposite each other in there, you have Taurus and you have Scorpio. Scorpio is the waters and the plants and all the vegetation and everything is part of the heaven on earth. That beautiful mansion on a hill with a great garden in the background, and lots of vegetables, and of course all the animals around. That's all a Taurian kind of energy. So the results of these three coming together brings creation. So Rohini, so this is what I was saying about there's this strong magnetic power of attraction that comes in there, and there's a natural charm and charisma that supports your rise in life, but also you may nourish resentments and jealousies in others because they have something you don't have, as an example, because you want to possess everything that's material. But there's one of the strengths here is this devotion and this earthly sensuality. And there's a great charismatic charm that also comes along with this very naturally for people. So you'll have a love of travel, luxury, you'll be motivated to fulfill all your personal goals and desires. And I have so many friends who are Taurus, and they cannot be entrepreneurs. They have to have a job. It's like that. They're fixed on that because I can count on a job. I can't necessarily count on me. Even though they're pretty stable, they actually would make great business leaders, but you seldom see them in those roles. So the other thing is that you would like your actions to be of service in a practical, tangible way because it's an earth sign. Earth signs are hands-on, down to earth, and practical, just like earth. So the shadow issues is that you can become too enamored with all the interest and sensual pleasures. You can become a pleasure seeker, and you'll just cling stubbornly to maintaining situations that only serve worldly life. You don't think outside of that box. Transformation and stepping out of your comfort zone is really difficult for you. And especially if you're in a situation where you're receiving praise and you're being honored. So lots of stories on Taurus people that will actually have a relationship and it'll be a bad relationship, but a bad relationship's better than no relationship. That's how, this is the kind of things you'll see here. They get too enamored with, well, if I let that person go, then I won't have anybody. And so you can see the clinging. The other thing is when you go into places where you see people with Rohini, they'll have all their books in nice, neat rows on shelves, and there won't be a speck of dust on them. They don't even look like they've been read. The binding isn't cracked. It's like going into a store. And I speak from experience because my brother's that way, and my sister is completely the opposite. She just gets rid of everything. So this is an example of that whole kind of thing, stepping out of the comfort zone. They don't like to change. And usually what happens is by the time they do change, it's too late. So Rohini will have all these temptations in it to rope you in. Now, as we move, Rohini sits right in the middle of Taurus. And so as we start getting restless a little bit, more curious about life, because I got everything I need, but what is the purpose of life? Then Mrigashira shows up, Mrigashira means literally the deer or antelope's head. And what's so funny about it is when you're doing readings with people with Mrigashira, they will absolutely look like a deer. And they will be deer, you know, a DEAR and a DEER. So this shows that transition from that fixed earth into this dual air. They call it mutable. But notice on the edge of the chart, which is where Gemini sits, things change direction. Those are not corners on there just to make the chart rectangular. That shows the dual nature of this whole approach that we're going into. So that duality where Mrigashira shows that transition into the structures and the pleasant structures into, well, okay, so what else is out there? And that general demeanor of Taurus and that longing, wistful nature of Gemini. So a deer is a gentle animal, and it's a lot like a cow, but it's a lot quicker, much more nimble. You know, and especially it's curious like a person or like two people in Gemini, for example. So deity is Soma, the immortal nectar of bliss. Now, the ruler of Mrigashira is Mars energy, which has to do with the vitality, the innocence, the awareness. So in this situation, it's a soft and tender. Think about a deer. They're out nibbling the grass and their ears are wide out. They're listening to everything and they are completely attracted to whatever's going on. They're always curious. They might hide a little bit behind a tree, but they'll look and you watch the deer wherever they are. Gentle animals. And it's as if like a child, you know, the mind is full of wonder, full of bliss. They don't have any questions. You know, the deer's not asking you, where do I go to find this? It's just kind of looking around, following you until you turn back towards them and they get skittish and run off. But look at children. Like children, they're just in awe. They're just looking at everything, looking at all the beauty around them from the world. And then they're wondering, you know, like this is the issue, this sort of wandering nature of the mind, noticing, Mom, why are my eyes blue? And then mother gives them a whole story about how the light reflects certain color, and then we end up with blue. And the child's looking at them with their eyes, huge mouth open. Oh, I thought it was because my eyes are blue. They don't want an answer. Soma is that immortal state where you're just okay with everything, but you're in that deep state of bliss. And so the antelope's head or deer is the symbol, because you'll see that deer, little children even, they look like deer. And they're always scamping off somewhere. And it's a Devic energy for the race or the Gana, which means a very deeply spiritual Devic energy. And the animal is the serpent. And because the serpent likes to like go around and look in and out of holes and things like that, they like to go all over the place. But the serpent energy is very significant in the Nakshatras and also in Vedic astrology because it's related to our Kundalini. It's related to the spiritual energy moving from the base of the spine to the top of the head. So in some way, this serpent energy relates also to the movement of that energy of love within you, that, and it's hidden inside, it's hidden underneath all those structures. So when we look at the story of Rohini, she wasn't very happy seeing the sexual advances from her dad. So she turned herself into a deer and skedaddled and ran off into a different portion of the sky, which was into Gemini. So she ran from sorry for the spelling there, from Taurus to Gemini. And, you know, Prajapati chased her, chained into a deer and, you know, pursued her into the nakshatra. Boy, I tell you, when the rest of the gods saw this, his intention wasn't of lust, but more of, you know, chasing that ephemeral vision of beauty and love so that beings could be born of this union and that they would be the best and the highest beings. So the gods are looking at this going, we got to fix this. And what the gods do is they take the worst parts of themselves and they made Rudra from it. So remember that one. Rudra comes up in the next nakshatra. So Mrigashira is what sort of brought all that on. So Soma, it's the god of bliss. It's the lord of this nakshatra. And the gods would always drink the Soma. If you read the Vedas, you read, the 9th and 10th mandalas, for example, it's all about pressing the Soma and then drinking it, and the intoxication. So they did that because it intoxicated them with the divine's truth. And so that outer celebration refers to the deeper inner experience of bliss, the highest potential of your mind, when the mind is just silent and curious. It's wandering, it's wistful. And you'll notice that longing, what else is there? And it kind of evades your view. You're wandering around, what else is there? And there's this, I'm longing for this experience, but it just doesn't seem to come, So that's that wistful side of your life where you have that. So in practice, a deer is a perfect symbol for this, especially for bridging into Taurus and Gemini, from leaving Taurus into Gemini, because it's gentle, it's grass-fed, just like the cow, but it's fast and it's restless, like Gemini. And owing to itself to the story being played out between Prajapati and his daughter, there's a quality of pursuit, longing, and searching. So it's called the wandering star. And the god Soma is the god of immortal nectar. So there's a searching for beauty, the ultimate beauty. But that search is a gentle one. And this is the first soft and tender nakshatra in the zodiac. So as I said, Mrigashira is ruled by Soma, the god of the moon and the immortal nectar. And its power is giving fulfillment. Its basis above is extending that in a huge way. And its basis below is like weaving it all together, producing very fine, beautiful tapestry of cloth, bringing more attractiveness into our life. So Mrigashira is the nakshatra of we're going to talk about its strengths and shadow issues. So one thing about Mrigashira shows that you have courage to pursue your heart's desire. And you have that innocence to just continue to do that, even after life's disappointments threaten to shatter all your illusions. You have a creative mind, it's finely tuned perceptions because you're moving into that air sign, which is about the thinking and the acting, which comes from the thoughts that you have. So this is, finely tuned perceptions as well as, persuasive speech and communication abilities. And the main motivation is to be free, yet you seek it in a gentle, soft way. You have a multitude of gifts and skills. All this is Mercury-related energy, which includes creating wealth, comfort, and love for yourself and others. Now, the shadow issues, because of the air sign, is you might be a bit fickle, unfocused, and prone to a jack of all trades, master of none syndrome, because that's dealing with that air energy. And air is where sometimes we're not very grounded and we're a bit spacey. So you can see that kind of fickle nature, looking around like a deer. You may spend too much time indulging on creative, idyllic fantasies and become frustrated when you're really faced with reality. Being careful, overtaxing your delicate nervous system. So you may be easily overwhelmed. And, all those thoughts and all those communications, all of those energies that come out of the sign where Mrigashira is, can really overwhelm you with all the facts, figures, all those kinds of things. And underlying hostile and angry nature is also present, because if you get too frustrated, that can become really powerful. And air signs are the kind of things that are seeking, they're about desire. They're karma based. So they're always seeking something in a wholesome way. And if they don't find it, they get frustrated, then they need to get stimulated. So they'll like go run, kick a ball, ride a bike, do some sports, things like that. They'll run around. So the last nakshatra we're going to talk about today is the sixth one, and this is Ardra, and Ardra means moist, and Ardra is very volatile, eccentric, rebellious, and a cruel nature of Gemini. And the deity is Rudra. Here's the guy I was talking about, Rudra. So he shows up because he's been assembled from all these difficult parts of all of these gods. And in some places, he's referred to as a bad dude or a badass. I don't like to use the second one, but he can be a real, he's like a hitman, and he's one of Shiva's helpers. So Shiva, of course, is always in Bhava Samadhi, and he just has his intentions, and these Rudras go do his deeds. They're his helpers, his assistants. The energy is related to Rahu, which shows a very eccentric, volatile kind of energy, because Rahu is where we need to learn some skills and where we invade things, and we also we don't listen to other people. We scream and yell and we put out smoke and we hide things in smoke screens because we exaggerate everything and blow it out of proportion. So you can see that energy of Rahu present here. The symbol is a teardrop and a gem. And later on, I'll share a story with you, but the teardrops come because of the destruction that comes here. This is sharp and dreadful. And it's related to a human, a very sort of advanced human. And the animal's a dog. So Rudra is known as the howler. And so when you see Ardra, you're going to see storms, natural and man-made disasters. And I talk about this in the documents that I give you, where I've done some readings on it. And one of the things you'll notice is every time Ardra Nakshatra comes up, you should look at the weather around the world. You'll see storms happening all over the place. And you'll also see destructive things going on. So on 9/11 in 2001, Rahu was in Ardra Nakshatra when the Twin Towers came down. That's an example of it. Also in Banda Aceh back in 2004 or 5, when all those people drowned in Banda Aceh, Thailand, that was Ardra Nakshatra. And also when Katrina slammed into the south, that was also Ardra Nakshatra. So you can see these things, big storms, or you see, like man-made disasters, like what happened on 9/11, for example. So the story, continuing that arc of creation, as I said, the other gods, Agni, Indra, and Vayu, they were appalled by what Prajapati was going to do, chasing the daughter. So they weren't powerful enough to stop him because he's the creator. So they devised a plan. They took these ferocious parts of each other. They made one badass deity called Rudra. So he would be able to stop Prajapati, given that he was made from all these fierce parts of them. So Rudra stalked Prajapati, and in his present form, he was a deer. So he pierced him with an arrow, and Prajapati crashed to earth. This act prevented mortal creatures from being born of pure God energy. And so this is related to the myths of the fall from grace. In all the religions, they talk about this. It's had its origins in this section of the sky. And astronomically, this is where the plane of the galaxy just runs. So between Gemini and Sagittarius, Sagittarius is where the black hole at the center of the galactic plane exists. And that's in Mula Nakshatra, which is ripping things out by the roots. And then in Ardra, the opposite side, which is way out in space on the galactic plane, that's where there's this huge transformation that goes on out in the galaxy. So in a modern sense, Rudra's that fierce form of Shiva. So he's the lord of the hunt and the protector of the soma. So this is a very important sentence I just said. He is the lord of the hunt and protector of the soma. So what you will see in these violent storms, and you'll see them in your life, some storm comes out of nowhere, destroys everything around you. It's a storm of emotion. Just imagine it, because the moon's associated with it. And it goes into this sign where you're dealing with two people. It's Gemini twins, this woman carrying a musical lyre and the man with a club. And so what you'll see are these energies that'll come up where there can be big emotional frustrations that come in there that I talked about, where they need to stimulate themselves somehow because they got all that air just flying around in there. So what happens after these big emotional things, whatever they are, is that your mind is like brought right back to the present moment. It goes right back to the soma, and you're shocked by what has happened. You don't know what just happened, but something new came to replace what was just destroyed. And so destruction always leads to something new if the right things are destroyed. It's not always bad. So here, his powerful, sharp, and dreadful nature is expressed in Ardra. And this means moist and represents the tears of devotion and that inner storm as is felt through like dark nights of the soul. So after you go through these things, you're left in that state of wonder. You may have even been in a car accident or see one, and you feel the rush of it, and you get out and you know exactly what to do. Mind is completely in that state, and you're like, how did I do that? How did I do that? And that comes about in Ardra Nakshatra. So in practice, the energy of Lord Shiva is this nakshatra, basically. This is the energy of change, transformation, and the courage to defend the truth and act in accordance with righteousness and your principle. So, however, at the same time, Lord Shiva doesn't operate in traditional cultural norms. And with this nakshatra, anything is possible. And it often leads to sudden change that can be for good or ill. So, as I said before, many natural and man-made disasters occur here. So the symbol of the teardrop refers to the flooding, deluge, and catastrophe. Now, once you've gone through many of these, you become more like a gem. That's the other part of this, a frozen teardrop. That's that energy of being able to hold the stability of what goes on, even in the middle of a storm, and not lose your center. The hunt and the protection of the soma. Don't get blown off your center. It's all just a big event. And so this is related to that half male, half female version of Shiva that's called Ardhanishvara. And so it's meaningful here, and it's related to Gemini, which is the sign of male-female duality. So Ardra ruled by Rudra, the fierce form of Lord Shiva, who represents thunder. Its power is effort, particularly for making gains in life. Its basis above is hunting or searching. Its basis below is reaching the goal. So these can bring about great achievement. So what are the issues here? You can act real powerfully in defense of a just cause, and there will be a protective quality to those actions. And there also will be high ambition and a desire to expand, because that's air. Air likes to move outward. So you possess a keen ability to anticipate societal trends Air also rules Libra, which is about social things. But in Gemini, you want to get together with your friends, have fun. So it can make you good at marketing and planning for the future. And you have a fierce and stormy side to you, an obsessive and tempestuous psychology. It can just boom, come out of nowhere very quickly, and much like a cyclone. So it's necessary to destroy and regenerate life. And this helps you regenerate your own life. But there's a lot of spiritual potential hidden behind these moments because it's related to Rahu, which is that part of us which wants to learn a new spiritual lesson. And so wherever Rahu is, and whenever we're in a Rahu dasha or Maha dasha, it's going to activate Ardra as an example of that. So the shadow issues are that you have to be careful of abusing your power and having the means to justify the end when you're fighting for a just cause. You can see this in some people. You can't tell them anything. You try to tell them, you try to talk to them, and they don't listen. And that's the Rahu energy. Rahu doesn't listen. It just wants to invade. It sees everything as wide open. So you may appear ungrateful, haughty, and excessively willful when you're going after your goals. And at times you may lack the vision necessary to see a bigger picture, especially when you're in the defense of righteous. So you must align that destructive nature with the right cause and destroy darkness and ignorance rather than destroying the positive things in your life. So that wraps these things up. Now, what I want to do is cover a little bit about why this is so valuable for you. I mean, you can, even if you didn't really understand the signs and really understood the nakshatras, which is the way they used to do the readings in the old times, understanding the nakshatra brings a lot of richness and complexity into the interpretations when you're doing readings. And it's good to look at them as like otherworldly, celestial qualities that are coming to life. You're going to see when you bring these up in readings, the response of the people. They're just like, how do you know that? Because you understand the energy and you're expressing that. Most of the time, you don't know until you actually interpret it for them. So the most important keys in understanding the nature of the nakshatra is know what the name means. Know the story and the myth that surrounds the Vedic deity that rules each one. And the nature of that deity is what really infuses the Shakti power within the nakshatra. So knowing the temperament of the deity and the story behind it, they're all blended with that planetary ruler. You'll see that. Like you look at Mrigashira, you got to have that fast impulse to get away. You got to be vital. That's Mars. When you look at going through Ardra, you need to be able to hold the space. You need to be able to not let anything. Enlightenment is being able to be with whatever is there, whatever storm, and not lose yourself in that illusion. So you can see that as the temperament behind it, and you blend that in with the planetary ruler, which is the moon. The moon's always emotional and feeling. You know, it doesn't like being, it can get stormy because it rules a movable sign where emotions, it's like a bucket of water going back and forth. Your emotions change every minute, every second, every hour, every day. It's that kind of thing. So when you know the story and understand the feelings and the motivations, it gives enormous insight into any of those planets that is present there. Now, I want to give it a little bit of a different spin too, because we talked about each sign has 3 nakshatras. One begins the sign, one is in the center, one bridges into the next one. So each sign and nakshatra within them links to an understanding that's related to the orientation in the zodiac. So for example, Aries is the first sign. So that's going to be related to things like the first house, identity, body, your appearance, your basic viewpoint, your ability to be autonomous and have freedom of movement. That's the truth of your experience. And Aries is all about that. It's all about you. So then when you're moving into the second sign, it's related to values. When we look at the second house, it's all about values. It's about our wealth. It's about, you know, our family. It's about all of the things that we value, our self-esteem, all of those. So personal values, wealth, money, the things you spend it on, the things and the people in your immediate environment. So you get my drift. As we move to each sign, the nakshatra takes on a quality if it's in the center. And as it's moving into and out of it, it's blending into the next, it's becoming more interested. Let's say when you go from Aries into Taurus, into value, into the attachment. What are those things in your life that are worth? You're not worrying about that as an Aries. You're just, you know, building your energy and wanting to act and, you know, being impulsive and things like that. So I'm not going to do all of these because we're running up against our time area here, but I'm just going to do one so you can see what I mean. The first nakshatra of the zodiac, Aries, means horse. Ashwini, physician of the gods, symbol the horse head. First sign, Aries, outer strength, living a life with no limitation. Enthusiastic but impatient. First sign of the zodiac, identity. All the things I just said, viewpoint, autonomy. It has an initiating action to it beyond the practical nature of just being born or perhaps born again. There's the Mars energy of vitality, focus, logic, innocence, brothers, friends, strength, discipline, self-will directed, awareness in the moment. All that Mars energy is present there. And the interesting thing about it is where does logic come from? Think of the child. It's laying there and it just starts screaming. Somebody picks it up and it's like, oh, this is a new experience. Start to rock it. Oh, so they start to remember that. Then they lay the baby down again and it starts screaming again. The mother picks it up and nurses it. Oh, wait a minute. This is something totally different. Logic starts developing. If I scream like this, she's going to rock me. If I scream like that, she's going to feed me. This innocent awareness starts evolving right through that process of it. So it's not a surprise that that would happen because the ruling planet is Ketu. Ketu is what we brought into this life from the last life. It's our perfectionism. But what happens when we access it is that all we notice are where things aren't perfect because Ketu just scrutinizes everything right down to the head of a pin. So we get this dissatisfaction, this detachment, solitude. Think of the child. You know, a lot of times they're in their crib alone, as an example of it, but they're in that metaphysical energy. Ketu is metaphysical, doesn't want to come into this life. But you will notice Ketu brings a lot of things from the past to you, all kinds of ideas. And the child may be laying there reminiscing its past life as an example of that. So this has to do with prana, modulating the breath. You know, this is like getting reborn, falling back into that discipline of focusing and moving forward with clarity and awareness. And the deity is the Ashwinis. You know, the quality that's innocent, active, courageous, and initiating. Now, I sent you all these charts. You can read through these part of it, but I go through each one of the nakshatras we talked about, but I start showing how it moves from the first. This one's right in the middle of the first for botany, and why Venus becomes an issue there. The next one is the third nakshatra. So you're leaving Aries, moving into Taurus. And so it talks about that movement from identity to value, the initiation to being more steady, not racing around, but being more steady and more pleasure oriented. And then the ability of the soul's energy, bringing all that confidence, all that generosity, and that growth, that self-growth that comes from it. integrity, purity. And then the god of fire, we have to sacrifice. We have to watch what we put in the body. The inner fire is hidden in the body and in the mind. And if we put bad things in our mouth and we don't do ritual sacrifices, we can toxify the body, and then it destroys our ability for the illumination and the ability for the strength of the life force in our body. So that's how they flow. I don't know why this one's still in here. All right. So I'm going to speed through these. All right, and we hit the end of it. All right, so let me put this out of the way and let's see if we can get some questions here before we end our session today. If you want to ask a question up on the control panel that you have, you want to click on your microphone and unlock that. And what I'm going to do is see if I can, I'm going to undo all of you so that you can talk, even though it doesn't look like it's going to doesn't look like it's going to do it. So does someone have a question? If you do, unmute your mic and feel free to ask.
I have a question. Hi, Jeff. How are
Hi,
you?
Susan. I'm well, thank you.
So my question is, how does it relate to when you're looking at the birth chart, the D1 chart, how does that relate to the D9 chart? So for example, if you have like Ashwini in the D9 chart, but you don't have it in the D1 chart.
Well, as you noticed in those divisional charts, there's no nakshatras. They don't apply there. What you do is you're looking more at the planetary arrangements and the signs that they're in, and you'd read it just the way you would any other chart. But there are some people that have an idea of putting nakshatras in that camp, but that's really not what they're designed for. They're designed to be used in the D1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good question though, because there's a lot. Sam Jeppy was my teacher, and he's gotten into a lot of commotion over those things because of there's a lot of mixture between how nakshatras are used and how some more what you would call like a neo-Vedic astrologer would come in with Western astrology and add nakshatras to it. And there's a lot of challenges with that, because what you end up doing is in Western astrology, there's usually a sign ahead. And if you're in a Leo period of time and they're talking about a Virgo time, the nakshatras don't apply, you know, and so there's a lot of confusion around things like that. And you'll find the richness comes out when you don't complicate it, because you're looking at fine divisions, which are creating those other charts. And those divisions can wreak havoc with a lot of the nakshatra energies, because they're very minute parts of it. What do you call out? What do you bring? But it's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you can see in the background or not. I have this document, which I call Moon in a Nakshatra and a Sample Forecast. And this one it covers every one of the nakshatras that we talked about today. And so the way I've used this in the past is when you do a daily forecast and you're looking at the TT and you're looking at the issues of the day, where the moon is, what nakshatra is in, what sign it's in, all of that. You can do a very quick forecast off of that. But there's a deeper spiritual thing behind it. And that's what I do with these nakshatra forecasts and interpretations. It's just what I do is I apply all the principles, but I weave it into a story that's related on. I have a lot of background in Vedic studies, studying it since like age 19. And So it started coming alive and bringing out a lot of that Vedic story that wasn't told. And what you'll see in every one of these nakshatras is there's like a practice recommended for it. There's a way to approach it. It's how do you deal with the difficulties and stay centered. And so there's a flow of that that goes really wonderfully when you're telling a story about a particular forecast for the day, because when you go deeper into the stories and some of the sideline things I mentioned, like seeing storms, like watching the fire that happens when it goes over a Gandanta, you can begin to weave that into what you're talking about here. And so it becomes a very rich story. And where I currently post this is in a private Facebook group that my teacher Sam asked me to participate in years ago. And I just started doing it. Otherwise, I was just putting it on Facebook. But what you'll see, if we just take one quick look at Aries and Ashwini, today's a good day for focused life force energy, known as prana, which is about your vital life force energy. There's prana everywhere, but how are you channeling that to bring it into your present moment? This is the time for noticing this energy and life force and for enhancing your most powerful get up and go energy. That's Aries. Get up and go, run. Aries is the first sign, which shows how life begins. It's in the area of the sky where the nakshatras are about creating life. So you'll see many of the energies lively today about the theme of taking your first breath. If you're not consciously activating that prana energy and controlling how it gets infused into your energy, into your system, your energy levels could just be all over the place. This is the impact of the first nakshatra of Ashwini here in Aries, where your energies are being brought forth and you are being reborn. And the energy of your life needs to be present to fuel your awareness. This brings the wonder back into your awareness, which shows up all at once and needs to be focused and controlled so that it awakens every one of your vital organs and the network of energy channels throughout your body for the nadis. This comes as a flood in a chaotic way in which you feel like running in all directions because you feel alive. Now you need to focus on how best to use this energy. At birth, awareness of life floods your form. You take your first breath in and the world laughs, but you cry. Then at death, you breathe your last breath out. The world cries, but you laugh. Ever wonder why? Wonder is the most innocent level of your consciousness. There is no need to know anything. Just like the awareness present to experience the beauty and awe of life that has just become your form. This is the birth of life when consciousness becomes conscious and existence becomes existent. So there is no mind present, just infinite awareness and the flow of the ceaseless moment. This is the peace and contentment that the ancients came to call Satchitananda, absolute truth, bliss consciousness. This is the present moment. Contrast this with your everyday life where the mind is spinning, questioning, driving you to what is next, next, next. I think you get the point. It's just like those horses running all over the place. It's so exhausting that when you try to sleep, you can't even turn your mind off. Now at this time, you will notice that in between those moments of life and death, how you take your breath for granted. You've been given life and you just accept it as your gift and start running in circles. Ashwini Nakshatra brings this experience and the lesson to learn into your consciousness today so that you notice how you feel like two wild horses running off in all directions. Living like this is living an unaware life where you just act and do not see what the purpose of everything is or why you're doing it. Do you know why you are here? What is your purpose? And how long will you be here? Most likely you do not. You just accept it as something that happened. Most people live their whole life this way, and their focus is all over the place. If you're going to be questioning, these are the most important questions. The ancient seers, who were the first real yogis, put their emphasis on a higher way of living by staying connected to everything that's happening. Their consciousness stayed present and awake, but they did not just sit still and do nothing. They observed what was happening. They began to modulate and control the breath, and they learned the first lessons of Ayurveda, that the breath is vital to everything in this life. They noticed that when they breathed in certain rhythms, that they could feel different emotions in different parts of the body. Observing this phenomenon, they kept their breath focused to see how these rhythms were intimately connected to everything in their life. The breath is that most intimate link between your sense of self and everything, because it puts you in the flow of your consciousness. The yogic Vedic knowledge became known as pranayama, which means controlling the flow of the prana, and it's how you restrain, control breath to bring your life force to all the parts of your body. This allows you to gain control of the happiness, comfort, joy, bliss, and to feel the substance of your consciousness, which you are made up of, that is called love. Yesterday, we discussed Pisces and the nakshatra of Revati, which was to prepare the soul for death. It's actually the soul and ego for death, and returning to the source of consciousness. This was about escaping from the world, or escaping back into consciousness. Today, you're presented with the first lesson about the need to be vital, awake, alert, and present in this moment. If you do not control that vitality, your life goes in so many directions unconsciously, and you just react to everything. You become like a machine. Someone pushes a button and you react. That's no way to live. You will find yourself exploding into a response that is often out of your control, like anger and impulsive behavior. And even as you're doing that, you realize that was not the most intelligent or kind way to respond. You can choose to act however you want, but when you're in control, then you're focused, disciplined, innocent, and you choose wisely. This is the lesson of Aries and the nakshatra of Ashwini. So today you will notice this happening in your life. It is the time that you can learn this lesson, that vitality must be channeled or focused and controlled. The breath is how you do this. The slowing down of the breath occurs in meditation naturally and effortlessly. This shows how breath can lead to effortlessly into inner peace and a silent center. Therefore, various pranayama techniques in yoga are used to purify the body so that it can enter the state of calm and peace that readies you for meditation. There are natural resistances to doing these things because they take time, but this is not wasted time. This is the proper use of time to bring a focus on what you plan to do with your life, instead of just spinning out unconsciously in all directions. Now is the time to tune into expanding your consciousness through your unbounded awareness. If you want to harness this new time of life, get focused. Observe what you're doing, and this will calm you so that you don't need to be so frustrated, impulsive, and start arguing, getting angry, and impatient with life. You know deep in your heart that is not who you are. No one likes getting angry. So this is what is being brought to everyone's awareness now. Start fresh, be disciplined, do the conscious thing, and control your life instead of letting the circumstances and other things control you. This is the highest knowledge, that you can live a life that you feel vital, and this disciplines you to express the dignity of your life. So be vital, be peaceful, be centered, be conscious and awake. Questioning is the beginning of the mind endlessly searching for its focus. It's all the questions that lead to more questions and embroil you in the inability to see what's happening. What is happening is truth. Wonder is the state of awareness which ends that spinning, questioning, troubled mind. Where that mind drops off, it ends and once again becomes silent awareness. The mind creates your biggest problems because it's not focused. Now's the time to become aware of this lesson. It is the simplest form of awareness that is the most powerful. Just as the energy at the quantum level of creation is infinitely more powerful than that energy on the surface of life. Refinement, depth, sensitivity, and innocence are the hallmarks of your higher self, and they lead to awakened consciousness that's full of light. You can see and feel every refined level of it only when you're completely innocent and have surrendered control. So just sit in the state of observation, known as the sakshat, and notice it is that part of you that is watching and witnessing everything. That is who you really are. So that's an example of how you can take the nakshatra and weave it in. And I've got one for each of them. So during the next week, spend some time reading through those and see how they personalize for you. Because each of these things are our own expression, but you pick up each of the values of the nakshatras. And when you read something like that, you begin to see all of the components stitching together in it. And that's exactly what the nakshatras do in our life. They move us to a much greater level of understanding about where we are in the universe and why we're doing what we're doing. It just becomes incredibly profound. Any more questions, or anyone want to respond to how they felt during that?
I've got a question.
Yeah, Vicki.
Do you intend to not have the slides for us to see as you lectured?
You
Because
didn't.
there were no slides on my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why they weren't. I had them presented so that they should have shown. No, I did not intend that. Barry warned me that sometimes the system does that. But I sent you all of the links you should have in your email where you can download the slides and you have the whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know that, Vicki. You can't tell from my side what's actually going out. Any other questions from other members? We had almost 10 people here. So if there are no more questions, we'll end with a final chant, and we'll have our next class coming up in the coming next week. And Barry had mentioned a number of classes that are coming up going forward, which if you're in other classes with him or you want to take additional ones, he has several of them coming up during this time. And the first one is February 13th through April 10th. It's this one here. Then he has on April 12th, he starts The Secrets of the Moon. That starts on a Sunday. And then on April 12th. And then he said May 1st, he has the Nakshatra Techniques. This is a 12 to 16 week program. And that has to do with all of the fine techniques of how you use nakshatras and how you understand the use of them through the various techniques that are available. Then he's got in April a complete guide to timing major events from birth to death, 12-week cycle. And then he has the Secrets of the Houses, the third edition of his Academy track that starts in September. He's going to be dealing with Vargas, D16, D20, D24, D11, D5, and the D6. And I think he's got a whole series of other classes, The Secrets of the Moon, the Mind and the Emotions coming up. That was the January 10th. We did the sneak preview. And the syllabus is that the first class will be the ocean in a drop, exploring every aspect of the moon and the mind and the fourth house. Class 2 will be the moon by house, sign and aspect, coloration of consciousness from the planetary signs. And then class 3, the moon by house, sign and aspect, the coloration of consciousness from planetary signs and aspect, part 2. So those were things he asked me to let you know about. And let's go back to here. So now we'll just close with a final series of chants, bringing your awareness back into the moment with a deep breath in and let go. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all for your presence here today. I look forward to joining you again next week. And if you have any questions during the week, that you can feel free to write to me and ask any question you want. And so at this point, we'll end the class. And everyone have a great week. Thank you for coming today. It's a great honor having all of you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.